Hi, listeners. Welcome to the Millionaire Millennial. I have Josh Cliffords on. He is the CEO, or what do you prefer? CEO, president, founder?
Uh, any of it.
Okay, of a company called Freewater. You can check them out. It's freewater.io, correct, is your website? And then Freewater on TikTok and across all social media platforms. They're doing some really revolutionary, amazing things over there. Josh, you're based out of Austin?
Yeah, we're based out of Austin.
Yeah. And so if you're in the Austin area, connect with him if you can. I'm sure that they've got a bunch of different campaigns and things going on. We're recording this and we're going to be putting it up on YouTube, but also the Anchor app and then Spotify. And then here, hopefully soon, this episode will launch on Spotify, Pandora, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all the other DSPs. So kind of just to get into it, Josh, if you would just tell the people a little bit about yourself and how you got into this space, or how you started doing what you're doing and what the company does.
Sure. I consider myself a regular person. I just love going on adventures and traveling. And back in 2015, I was on a trip around the world. And I was really touched by the story of a couple of refugees from Africa. And that compelled me to cancel my trip around the world. And I started a nonprofit organization to help refugees in Europe. And during that time, we helped more than 10,000 people in need. And I would speak to as many people as I could to hear their stories. And the constant story that we were told over and over again was they left their country because they didn't have access to water, food, or medicine. And so after hearing it thousands of times, we dug a bit deeper and we realized that 35 million people die every year around the world because they don't have access to these essential goods. And so the plan was to create a system that made saving a life as simple as eating a free slice of pizza or drinking a free beer. And so fast forward to today, and Freewater, we're the world's first free beverage company. And our water is free because the packaging is the ad space. And it's a new type of media and e-commerce platform. And this is just the first product of our future free supermarkets here in the US. But most importantly, we donate 10 cents from every beverage to build water wells for people in need. And when you do the math, we'll only need 10% of Americans to save money and drink free water to solve the global water crisis permanently. That's water wells and systems built for 800 million people around the world.
That's crazy. So, and you obviously are doing it with water at the moment, but your goal is to eventually launch into other projects, correct?
Yeah. So, I'm 37. So I had the privilege of watching Amazon launch, and they started out with books. And so books were to Amazon as free water is to us. This is just the first product of our future pre-Amazon. And so our second products will be free soda or energy drinks and free beer. Free weed were legal. I already own the domains for all of that. And then groceries and you name it, we've got processes for free iPhones and computers too.
And you're open source.
We
right,
are
to a degree.
Yeah. So there's kind of two camps here. You could patent something, which gives you a legal monopoly and control over it. I didn't think it was very ethical to patent free food, water, and medicine. And instead of trying to patent that and owning that, having a legal monopoly, we went the open source route. Traditionally, people think open source, they think of a book that they could follow or a roadmap. We don't have that laid out today, but we will in the future. But what I did was I went ahead and blabbed about all our secrets and IP all over the internet, so no one could patent these things. And so it makes it easiest access to copy as easily as possible.
But I mean, it's something too, I think that I'm sure someone could, but it's like who a lot of times will, right? Not everyone wants to. I mean, essentially, like you're almost on a mission to save the world in a crazy way.
So our goal is to save those 35 million lives a year within this decade. And let's say if a Coca-Cola or Amazon squashes us like a bug by opening a better free supermarket that donates more to charity, so they're going to beat us at saving those lives, who the fuck cares? I mean, right. But I do believe we are the next Google, though. Yeah.
So have you ever owned any companies in the past? Or are you new to the entrepreneurial space? What did you do before doing this?
I've always been an entrepreneur. I grew up in LA. When I was a kid, I was that that kid who had the lemon tree in front of our house. So I was always selling lemonade. But one day when I was 9 or 10 years old, I thought, what would happen if I had a sign that said free lemonade? And then all of a sudden, the cars were lined up around the block. My pitcher was getting empty. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't squeeze lemons that fast. So I ran in the house and grabbed all my baseball, basketball, and football cards. I was a spoiled kid. I had a big collection. And I sold all my cards, and I made more than $1,000 in that weekend. And then my parents thought I had stolen the money. The neighbors said, "Oh no, he got him over there with the free lemonade and somehow sold him these other things." So it's really that same business model. And then when I was 10 years old, I took that money and I invested into Microsoft stock in 1995. And so by the time I was in the ninth grade in '99, it was worth more than 35,000. And so that was my first step into entrepreneurship. I had small businesses, a gym for athletes, but this is my first startup. I also founded some nonprofits in the past, and a startup is meant to be scaled globally. And so there's a difference between a business that's meant to be in one city or franchisable in a couple, or something like an Uber that's literally designed from the beginning to be a global phenomenon. So this is my first startup.
Okay. And what you said you had done some work for nonprofits, or you had started some nonprofits.
I founded 2 nonprofits in the past. One was a failure. It was one of my biggest failures. It was a nonprofit to help obese children get skinny in California.
Okay.
And then the one for the refugees in Europe, which I thought was a success. We helped more than 10,000 people.
Now, why do you consider the first one a failure?
Well, I owned a gym, and I always thought, okay, well, in between our client sessions, we could have this nonprofit running through there. And I was young at the time. I was in my mid to early 20s. I had a lot of wealthy clients, and they all told me, hey, we need to make donations. We have a lot of profit, and we'd love to make donations. And so I went out of pocket for more money than I could afford in my mid 20s. And then the '08 recession came. And then those people no longer had money to donate. But most importantly, if you're trying to help an obese child lose weight, usually that means that the parent has to lose weight, because a lot of these obese children are highly obese children of highly obese parents. And the parents would literally say, all we asked for was they would stop giving their kids soda and fast food and take them on a 30-minute walk every day at 7 p.m. A 30-minute walk, and the parents wouldn't do it. So they said, listen, I don't want to stop drinking Coke and Pepsi and eating McDonald's, and I don't want to go on that walk. And so almost all of the kids, none of them really lost weight because the parents weren't owning it with them.
Interesting.
So that's why it was a failure, because we didn't get the results that I wanted with the children. I lost money. And but it was a big learning lesson, and I parlayed that into the second nonprofit with the refugees, and I would call that a success.
Now, well, a couple questions, but why 7 p.m.?
It was just the time in which most people were off of work. The kids were there after dinner. The goal was to get them to go for a walk after their dinner. And a lot of them said they had dinner at 6 or 6:30. So
7 p.m. was the...
Yeah, I mean, it didn't have to be 7. It was just take them on a walk. I mean, if they couldn't do 7 anytime, just take them on a 30-minute walk.
Right. Be active with your kid.
But they wouldn't do it. They're like, then I have to do it, and I don't want to walk. And so...
Yeah, exactly. Interesting. Well, so when you started these businesses, like you said, you'd started a couple of businesses and then the nonprofits. Did you just go sign the paperwork up yourself? Because where were you living at the time? Were you still in LA, or had you?
I was in LA for the gym activity. Yeah, it was all stuff that I did on my own from scratch. Made a lot of mistakes. I learned from making mistakes, which isn't the best way of doing things. That's for sure. And that's just how those businesses work.
Got you. So, I mean, because there's going to be a lot of people listening to this podcast who are starting nonprofits. Some people are going to be starting LLCs, sole props, C Corp, S Corp, whatever, with Freewater, and I guess the gym and any other businesses, is like for myself, right? We're going to be structured as more than likely an S Corp, depending on our tax situation. But it's something that I base that off my own experience and expertise and study of the market, and also obviously my financial advisors, my accountant, things like that. Did you do the same, or did you how did you pick each elective, and why, and how did you go about doing it? And did you have a financial expert to help you with that in the beginning, or is it just something that?
I didn't in the beginning, but luckily I was a personal trainer to many financial experts and lawyers. So eventually I was able to pick their brains, and even if I didn't have the right vehicle at first, I was able to scale into that later through their advice. And so I think every vehicle, for whether it's an LLC, a sole proprietor, a S corp, C corp, nonprofit, public benefits corporation, whatever, they all have their pros and cons, and the waters are pretty murky. And I would never dive into any of them just because there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of pros and a lot of cons to each of them. So don't do it the way I did it. Don't fail and then learn from the mistake, because that gets pretty expensive.
I imagine, yeah. I myself just like leapt in and did my thing and hit the ground running. And thankfully, I have a great team and some great advisors, and obviously everyone has to do their own due diligence. But so why make Freewater a nonprofit?
It's actually not. We're a for-profit company, and
okay.
So the reason why we weren't a nonprofit is because my experience with the nonprofit sector is it's not sustainable. Because if you run out of donations, your organization's out of business. And so Freewater is a little bit controversial in that water is a publicly traded commodity. It's on the stock market, no different than pork bellies, gold, silver. And if the powers to be get their way, water will be $50 or $100 a bottle, not $1 a bottle. And governments use water in water politics and policies, where if they don't like the neighbor and you have water flowing from your country to theirs, you'll create a dam, and now you turn that spigot on and off whenever they're not behaving themselves. And so it's really not in the best interest of the powers to be to make water free or to solve the global water crisis, which is why I knew it had to be done outside of government, outside of donations. You literally have to make it as simple as saving money and drinking a free water. And there you have it. Because it's working backwards to solve the crisis, it's only $5 billion to solve it permanently. Any government or corporation could snap their fingers and solve it in a second. But there's a reason why they're not. It's because it's not in many of their best interests. And so I knew that it had to be an outside of the box solution. It couldn't cost more. It had to save companies. It had to save people money, but you also had to make it so profitable that the Coke, Pepsis, and Nestle's will copy us. And the reasons why they'll copy us is because this can be 1,000 times more profitable than selling a water or a Pepsi. And so eventually they'll all copy out of a sense of survival or just wanting to make more money. Not necessarily because they care about solving these things, but they just want to make more money. And so I knew it had to be more profitable, and it had to be cheaper to pull off. And a lot of, I guess, socially conscious brands cost more, like a Tom shoes. You buy a pair of shoes, they give a pair of shoes, but those shoes were overpriced, and they're spending more to do that good. And so what's really unique about this is it's less. We're actually negatively priced because it's free, and we donate 10 cents per charity. So we're actually the world's first negatively priced consumer product that's profitable.
That's amazing. That's so much to unpackage too. Like you're saying that, like, obviously this is not in the government's best interest, almost any government, unless you're on the other side of the spigot getting turned off, of course, for a time, I'd imagine. But like, does that worry you? Have you been approached by anybody in like black suits being like, hey, maybe you should stop doing this?
No, but all the time we hear like, oh, you're going to be murked by Nestle or by this or that. But that's also another reason why I open sourced everything. Do you really want to be that person with the name on the patents on all of these things? And so it's better just to open source it, put all of your inventions out. If you really care about something, you care about the invention or product being put into fruition even more than your personal success. And so I find by blasting out all of your secrets across the web, then not only do you make it makes it more likely that they're going to happen, but people hear about what you're doing and then they want to contribute. And that's a big thing. If you're secret about it and you have everything locked down under patents and monopoly, no one knows what you're doing. And I think it's just a different way of doing it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. How does your family feel about this? Because obviously, like, I mean, I like from a remove standpoint, like I can laugh, or just anyone can laugh, like, at the idea of, you know, the powers that be putting pressure on you or doing whatever. But I mean, what even when you came up with the idea, where they were like, "What are you talking about, Josh?" Or did they see the immediate brilliance?
It took me 2 years to invent everything and to be able to explain it in a palatable way. And so during those 2 years, everyone was telling me, just quit. It's not possible. You're just a personal trainer. You're just to this. You're just to that. Go back to your old line of work. You were great at that. Why would you risk everything and do something like this that'll never work? It's not possible. Um, so it was a long journey from going from only that and reaching outward for everything to now everything comes inward. And I don't think it's a question in anyone's minds if it's possible. Now the question is if our company is the next Google or not, and if someone else will just take the idea and make it a success themselves. And so when I invented these concepts, I knew I had two ways to win. Way number one was the world's largest companies squashed me like a bug, and we become the MySpace of free groceries. And if somebody puts us out of business by saving the world better than us, that's a great thing. And option number two is obviously I would like to recoup my investment. Who doesn't want to be the CEO of a successful tech company if that's your thing? And so I know that option number one, being the MySpace of this space, that's the worst possible outlook now. And so now it's if we could capitalize and be that Google. And I believe we will.
To be honest with you, I think you will too. I mean, just for the simple fact that you're the first ones in the space, and obviously it's your idea and you're the originator of it. And so anyone coming behind you will obviously be copying you. Not that that's necessarily.
I think being first is important, but being last is more important. Like Google wasn't the first search engine; they were like the 20th search engine. Yeah. And so, but Uber was the first ride sharing, and they're still a big thing. And so, I think it depends on what you do with your first mover advantage. And I think we're doing a lot with it. So for us, it is advantageous. But again, I welcome that competition because it's not a bad thing if Pepsi becomes free and donates money to charity.
Right. Of course not. Well, that's like, I think about it too. I mean, it's something that you're obviously very sharp and a good business mind. And I imagine that a lot of what you do as a company and what you're doing and how you guys even think, you have a very big think, and it's something that you are forward looking, and it's something that you are able to look at companies like Google, Facebook, etc. Meta, I guess now, whatever you want to call it. But
I don't like that. I always call them Facebook still. It's just weird for me.
Yeah, but I say that too because obviously this being the Millionaire Millennial, we might have some listeners who, I mean, maybe they were literally just came to Facebook within the last couple of years and they've only known it as Meta or the last few months or whatever. But it's something that obviously you're able to look at these companies as an example. You even talked about Amazon, and you don't necessarily need to repeat the same mistakes that Jeff Bezos made. I mean, we can look at people's plans and models and emulate those same things within our own businesses, which is something that I'd like to encourage our listeners to do. I mean, it's something that you don't, how you said, don't repeat my mistakes. And I'm sure people who are tapped into this podcast are doing that for a reason and getting part of that. But
I think that's the hardest thing to do is to take the time to do something original, because most things in business are folklore, which means they're done because you just copied the people that came before you, and they copied the people that came before them. And people don't ask questions on why things are done. They just copy it. And so I think you need to be a really motivated individual to really ask questions on all of those layers, and then to be able to be like, no, this one's bullshit, get rid of that one. No, this one doesn't make sense, get rid of that one. And then just streamline the process. And I think that was the hardest part with this.
Yeah, I would imagine. So are there other entrepreneurs in your family? Or
Uh,
where did this sort of thinking come from? Were you, I mean, obviously you'd said that like just with the lemon tree and that, but it's like plenty of people would have gotten to that moment and just been happy and been fine. It's something that obviously like you, like I said, your think is very big.
yeah, I was never, okay, listen, when I started this journey, I couldn't even type. I graduated high school in 2003. I was a jock. I didn't pay attention in school. I couldn't type. I couldn't use a computer. Um, those were some of the scariest limitations for me at first. It's like, are you really going to teach yourself how to type? Are you really going to teach yourself about all this tech? It was really daunting and scary. The only reason why I did it was because I felt guilty knowing that we could save those 35 million lives a year. And are you just not going to do this because it's hard? Are you not going to do this because you're scared Nestle could make your life a living hell? And eventually I had to do it because I just felt so guilty about being too scared to not do it. And I just knew that that guilt would torment me more than attempting it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Like, you had the idea and you have the gift and the ability to do that. And you just sit on your heels and don't. I would imagine that would probably keep you up at night. And obviously this whole thing probably does to a degree. Is it something that do you sleep well? Or are you able to get through and figure out what you got? Like, how do I put that? I mean, it's just that sounds like a ton of pressure from like all sides, right? Because you're taking on these global monoliths and also this massive worldly problem. But you're one man, and you can literally and are changing the world. I mean, I found out about you just off your TikTok, and I think it's amazing.
Um, there was a lot of planning that went into this, and so um, when I was in the Army for a couple of years, I was training to be a Green Beret and I got hurt. And so I never finished the training. But the job of a Green Beret is to overthrow large forces with a small number of people. And so that same playbook, I just applied and pointed at the direction of Coke, Pepsi, and Amazon and Google. And so with a small group of people, if you plan it out right, you could do amazing things. And so, even though our team is small, we're 9 right now. I do believe we have the punching power of a regular corporate entity with 1,000 people in certain avenues. And so, one part of that is our outreach through TikTok and social media. And so, when you're small, you have advantages. You can move quickly, you could make mistakes, you could recoup them. If you're a big corporation, it's hard to even move into a direction because you have an idea, then you tell your boss, you got to make a presentation, PowerPoint for your boss, and then your boss makes a PowerPoint for their boss. And then that's why Tesla is so brilliant. Instead of going up that chain of command that way, you could just go to any person in the organization and say, I have an idea. And imagine how much time and personnel and resources that saves. And so there are some amazing examples that you could take from Tesla and SpaceX or Boring Company, and then there's the examples of what you don't want to do. And so by learning from those companies' mistakes, by building off of what a company like Tesla or Google has done, I think there's a lot of room for improvement for everybody. And it's just that combination of finding that right fit.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was gonna be another question I have for you as well. Amongst I have a million of them. You said your company is nine parts at this moment in time. You have 9 people. What are the departments that you find yourself having? I mean, and I'm sure you have more that you need to expand into, but just with what you have right now, what helps Freewater run? What are your like prime departments at this moment in time?
Business development, social media, graphic design, a lot of design in general, because we're designing packaging for companies. And so a lot of this is design based, media based, business development in general. Soon it will be a lot more software and stuff along that lines. But we're really trying to keep costs low, everything bare bones minimum right now, just to be really efficient. I've seen a lot of startups that fail, and they fail because they pay themselves much too high of salaries. They don't manage their runway and their burn rate, and then they run out of cash, and that's it. And so just being very, very lean. is what's most important.
No, I agree. Same for us. It's something that it's staying lean. And so how do you find the right people then? It's something, obviously that's like an ongoing process, and obviously business is business to a degree too, because you're gonna have to hire and fire and things like that. And it's something that, who wants to be like, oh, the guy who's giving free water away to the world canned me, or doesn't make the right fit for your team. And so how do you?
It's an art, right? Because there's different types of players that you need. You need the right number of people that are at the peak of their careers and they're very well connected and could just open a door for you. But when you're 45 to 55 and you've already made that money and you've already spent, you already put your grind in your mid 20s, mid 30s. I'm not saying that they won't work as hard, but it's not the same as having a 25-year-old at the beginning of their career that will do whatever it takes. And so you need that right combination of people that are young and hungry and will do whatever it takes, also with the right combination of seasoned business people at the peak of their career. And what's really hard is being that layer of communication between all of those players, so they're all working direct and they're all moving at the right direction at the right pace, and so it's a balancing act.
So, I mean, and how do you even hire for that? What do you put out for? You're just like, hey, those who want to come save the world with me, or like, do you put that out on LinkedIn or?
Luckily, just through our social media, half of our team and half of our investors have just come to us through TikTok.
Wow.
And I recently added some really great guys. They moved from out of state, and they reached out to me separately and just said, I'm moving to Austin and I'm doing this.
That's awesome.
Okay. So it's, I guess by putting what you're working on out there, if people agree and believe in what you believe in the right scenario, they'll reach out to you.
Interesting. Yeah, that's how I came about. You saw there's like people outside our hallway, but couple other questions, and what I might end up doing, we might have to break this into two parts, like you and I discussed earlier, just to inform our listeners, just because I am in a recording studio and there's a band coming in, and it might be something that they're going through rehearsal, and I think they have a show coming up, and so it's impossible to drown out metal bands. But couple quick questions. You spoke about investors, and that's something that I'm assuming Freewater has investors at this moment in time?
Yeah, we've raised $250,000 since September 2nd, bringing our current valuation to $7 million.
Okay. And so that's something that when you first started Freewater, you immediately knew you would take on investors. Was that something that was advised to you?
I was trying to do it for years, 100% out of pocket. And I have gone through a lot. And it got to the point where I was pushing my wife and myself beyond comfort, beyond the uncomfort zone. And people just started reaching out and wanting to invest. And it just seemed like it was the right time in September. The right time. Initially, I was reaching out. Everything was reaching out. It was a struggle. And trying to raise VC money or angel investor money is horribly demoralizing sometimes.
Even for as brilliant of an idea as Freewater.
Yeah, it is. And so they always want more. Okay, come back to me when you've accomplished X, Y, and Z. Then you do that. And then they're like, okay, now accomplish A, B, C. And you do that. And now accomplish, whatever. And a lot of those people are not really risk adverse, at least the ones that I met. And by the time you've done enough milestones that they've asked from you, you could go get a loan from the bank. And so I stopped looking for money and I just put my head down and scored touchdowns. And eventually you score enough touchdowns that the money and help will find you.
So, I mean, that brings me to another point then. So you've taken on investors. Are you taking on investors still? Could the public or people who are listening to this podcast even, is there a way that if they believe in what you've got going on beyond just getting a Freewater in their hand, how do they help you? How do they grow Freewater?
We're currently in our seed round. We're accepting checks as small as $10K. We're looking for a certain type of investor, people that are more about changing the status quo than making a quick buck. And so that's kind of what we look for when we're vetting people. After this, we'll do a one-time Series A. That'll probably be our last round where we'll be raising $20 million. And that'll allow us to buy out our manufacturers, build our first micro factory in Austin, and leftover money will be put towards going public.
Wow. So
we're really close.
Okay. How do you know when that time frame might be? Do you have any idea? I mean, obviously the market does what it does. Investors are going to do what they do.
So our goal is to accomplish what I call the first triple in business history, which is a successful Kickstarter Indiegogo, just free money, people that are supporting the cause. Then we're going to launch our cryptocurrency, and you can't make an iPhone free or other big ticket items free without a digital placeholder. It doesn't have to be crypto or anything, but it's just a really nice fit for us. And then to also do the traditional stock market. And so what a lot of people don't know is how difficult it is to have your company in the stock market, not even in NASDAQ, but even in the pink sheets, the ones that you never hear about. It costs about 250 grand in legal fees and SEC fees, and then it takes 18 months. And so we're hoping to have that $250K down by the end of this year, which would enable us to be publicly traded in the traditional stock market 18 months after that. And so we're starting with the crowdfunding. We'll launch the Freewater token when we've distributed 250,000 beverages or have 1 million TikTok followers, whichever comes first. And I think we'll cross both of those at the same time around Halloween. And so we'll be launching that token, and then it's a pretty interesting trajectory right now.
What are your numbers right now? What are you sitting at?
We've currently distributed 35,000 beverages. Most of that was last year. We currently have 45,000 beverages being manufactured right now. So in the next 90 days, we'll distribute more than what we did all of last year. I would say conservatively, we'll do 250,000 beverages this year. And depending on how fast we could build our sales team, we could do 1 to 5 million.
Wow.
And then that, go out from there.
And that 250,000 that you're hoping to distribute or going to distribute, how much of that is consumed just in the immediate Austin area? I mean, I'm sure, do you do the math of like?
Most of it. And so we currently have 2 business models. We've got a B2B where we design aluminum bottles or paper cartons, and we help you connect any tech you have, download music, movies, TV shows, video games, augmented reality, shop, whatever. Anything on the internet, we could connect to the packaging. And if you pay extra, you could use augmented reality to advertise beyond the packaging in the metaverse. And so if B2B, we could ship large quantities to advertisers anywhere in the lower 48 states. But the catch is, in these early days, they have to distribute it themselves in that model. Or we offer direct to the consumer only in Austin at the moment. From here, we scale out. And so a big step for us is we'll launch our first few free vending machine prototypes this year. And so Austin's kind of a sleepy big city, but we're designing those so has New York City, London, and Tokyo in mind. Busy, loud, noisy. People are in a rush, just take your snack. And so once we get the bugs out of those free vending machines, those vending machines will scale to every city around the world.
Wow. So, God, that's so much. So to dial it back into the investors and stuff like that, who walked you through that process? This is obviously your first, I'm assuming your first time taking on investors into a company. You had said you lost a lot. So who sort of coached you through that? Because how you said, at one point you couldn't even type, and to this point now, like you and I are talking about an IPO of yours, and you taking on like all this money, it's insane. So how did you go from that to that, and who helped you along the way with that?
A lot of trial and error. I was in Silicon Valley for a year, so I saw some success stories and failures. Had some issues. A lot of YouTube, that's for sure. A lot of YouTube. There's a lot of great content out. There's also a lot of not so great content. So it's a matter of navigating through what's meaningful for you. Now we're at the point where the movement is growing so rapidly, I can't learn by failure anymore, because now there's too much on the line. And so now we're looking to align ourselves with some other entities, whether it's the Startup Accelerator or seasoned founders that went through the whole journey themselves, just so I could leverage their past mistakes and successes. So if you whether it's sports or business or whatever, if you could leverage other people's failures instead of you having to fail yourself, that's obviously always best. And so now that this is becoming more and more of a global phenomenon, people from all around the world are reaching out to lend their support. And so that's what's really amazing is we're getting a lot of free help, free guidance from people from every country in the world.
Amazing. How do you sift through what's worthwhile, what's not, what is just somebody pitching you, Forex trading or whatever, as compared to like real deal financial advice or whatever? And no, and I'm not to diss anyone in the Forex world.
We try to respond to every single message on our website. Some of the messages are just spam. It's like, where's my free fucking water or whatever. But we don't respond to those ones. And anybody who takes time to write something meaningful, whether we think it's important or not, we have been trying to take a lot of pride in getting back to those people.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that was it. Go for it.
Do you have a team that like responds to that just specifically, or one person, or does I imagine
in a startup like this, a lot of people are wearing a lot of hats, and so we all do it.
I was going to say, so is it like all day your team's like, hey, Josh, like we've got, I would just imagine you're just being bombarded.
It comes in massive waves. And the beauty with TikTok is when we have a hit video, that's when a wave of traffic comes to the website. And so sometimes you've got a lot of hit videos and it's just like, wow, like I'll wake up and in one night you had 5,000 or 10,000 new visitors that stayed for at least a minute each. In the month of September, we had 30-some-odd thousand unique visitors, and more than 10,000 people wrote to us.
Wow. Do you, on your, I don't remember if I've been to the Freewater website as of late. I'm sure probably in the very beginning when I made contact with you, I probably did. You don't do any advertising off that, do you? As well as, because obviously the can itself is something that you're offering advertising space.
So we offer a few things. We do offer just obviously this is primary advertisement on the physical packaging. If people pay extra, we give them a lot more presence on our social media, also on our website. So yeah, everything is for sale to a certain extent.
Is that something too? Have you had any really like outrageous companies reach out or things you've had to turn away? Because water is water, but also it's like on brand with like everyone drinks it from a child to an adult. So is it something that you worry about that, or is that even a concern? Or
more than a free beverage company or free supermarket, we're a philanthropic ad agency, and we're just the ad medium. What better medium to use than a product you literally need to consume or you die? And this product is marked up. Water's marked up more than any product in the USA, more than Big Pharma. If you buy a bottle of water for $1, your markup was 2,000 times the price that the company paid for that water, minimum. And so it's really, what else is 2,000 times the price markup? Nothing. And right. So if you were to disrupt something, it's an important thing to disrupt first. And so we're an ad agency. We're not a water company, even though we are, but we're not. And so it all depends on the audience. If a cannabis company wants to advertise, well, we ask who's your audience, who's your distribution point. If they say, oh, the distribution point is different cannabis shops that we're already selling our product in LA, that's great, right? But if they said, oh, we want you to give this out at elementary schools, that's obviously not going to work.
Right.
It's a matter of marrying the right brand to the right audience. If they own that outlet, it's easy. If they want us to distribute it in certain outlets, then we have to decide, is this something we want to do? Same thing, now we have a lot of politicians reaching out. Every politician's going to want their face on the packaging and so on and so forth. And so we're also telling them we have a no fake news policy, because we don't want to be the Facebook of free groceries. We want to be the Bitcoin of free groceries. And we'll ultimately have a fake news contract where we'll say, hey, you guys are on the hook for $1 to $10 million in damages in case they slip something by us. And
sure.
It's the next, whatever it is.
Right.
And so I think that's important. To marry the right ad to the right audience, but to make sure if it is something controversial like politics can be, to make sure that they know, hey, if they really screw something up here, they're on the hook for $10 million in the future. I don't think they're going to put that ultra fake news out there. Maybe they will. Maybe they're like, hey, $10 million is worth it. But
right. It's a ton to unpackage. It's very interesting. A lot. It sounds like you have just some of the craziest waters to navigate. I mean, it sounds like a lot. But so people are probably wondering too then, so like you said, you're going from Austin outwards. What do you think, or how long do you think it will be till it reaches? I mean, are you going, I mean, I know the answer, but are you going to be launching in major cities across the US first? What's your next stop outside of Austin?
so again, we could ship large quantities to advertisers who want to distribute anywhere in the lower 48 states now. Now we just bought our first Freewater truck, which we're using in Austin for big giveaways, home delivery. Next step after that is vending machines. We also pre-ordered 25 Tesla self-driving Cybertrucks, which we'll be using for our future home delivery when they eventually do come out. But free products encourage a decentralized micro factory business model. And so we're built to create micro factories, not just one, but many, in every city around the world. And so imagine like every major city has a McDonald's on every corner, and that McDonald's services that local community. And so in a building size twice the size of a McDonald's, we could manufacture 150 million of these per year. And so by doing that, we will fulfill that local community with that product. And so in Austin, for example, we'll have 23 of these micro factories. And when we reach 23 micro factories, every single person in Austin will have all of their beverage needs covered for free, including free local delivery. And so an Amazon or a Walmart or a Target or a Budweiser or a Coca-Cola, they can never offer free local delivery because they built themselves in a world where things cost money. So you make mega factories, like mega fulfillment centers, and you ship things far distances across a city, state, country, or the world. And the future is local. The future is free. The future is local. It's about having that fulfillment center on your block. All these supply chain issues which we're having, it's because these companies are sending their products across the whole world. And then a little thing like COVID comes in, and now the shipping ports are booked up, and that's not going to be a problem for us in the future because of this decentralized model.
So is that a route that you're steering away from at the moment in time too? Obviously, like I don't know, I'm not an Amazon seller, but I'm sure a company like yours could probably get listed on Amazon and yeah, with the click of a button, free water showing up at your door. And obviously, Jeff Bezos probably doesn't need the nickel, but it's.
I've thought about putting the product on Amazon, but I'm fearful that we would send like 50,000 waters to the fulfillment center, and then when they realize what's going on, they would probably end our account, and then we would have to be stuck with the bill of reshipping that from their fulfillment. And so we will get there, but this is ultimately designed, big picture, to be an Amazon 2.0. So free products, free local delivery, roughly 10% goes to charity, but we still make more money than Amazon because of these new revenue streams. But again, free products, when done right, gets into the consumer's hands and 1/10 of the channel. So it's that cost savings of doing everything local. I'll give you an example. What's your favorite cereal growing up?
Oh man, probably like Cinnamon Toast Crunch or something like that, I'd imagine.
Cool, Cinnamon Toast Crunch. So if you dissected a box, and what does that sell for? Like $4 a box probably today.
Probably something like that.
$4. And so if you dissect the box of Cinnamon Toast Crunch from all of the ingredients, and then the plastic bag, and then the box with the ink, and you tracked it all around the world, you would notice that all of those ingredients probably traveled 5,000 miles before they ended up in your local grocery store. An example is the corn probably came from the US, the sugar from, who knows, Puerto Rico, wherever.
Right.
Who knows, the dyes here and there. But then that plastic bag came from oil that was pumped in Saudi Arabia. And then that went on a tanker and was shipped to China, most likely, to turn into plastic pellets, to have those plastic pellets brought back to the US. The box came from trees in Northern America. But a lot of times when they laminate it and do the things to the box, they actually send it to Saudi Arabia first. And so the tree gets cut down in North America, turned to paperboard, then sent to a country like Saudi Arabia or the Philippines or wherever. And then a lot of the printing, for whatever reason, is done in Amsterdam for a lot of different products. And so when you track all of those, what that tells me is, they could have done that all in a single location here in the US, and they could have sold that box of cereal for $1 or $2 and still had the same margins as if now they're selling it for $4, but it circled the globe 15 times. And so that's every product in our supermarket, from every food to this packaging that we use today. And so in the future, we'll be doing it all in those single cities. Everything from making the packaging from scratch to the product within the packaging. And those cost savings are just as valuable as making money through other forms like the ad revenue or the commission from products sold or data, or if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, you are attacking a lot of problems on a lot of different levels. How do you keep it all straight? And let me ask you this too, with as much of your life is probably consumed by this, what's your personal life like? How do you decompress from this? Do you pull away from it ever, or is it at this point, can you, or?
This is all that I do and all I've been doing for, like 80 to 100 hours a week for the last 4 years. And so this is it. It is what it is. Wake up early, go to bed late, dream about it. Every day I lose track of the day because every day feels like Monday, and I'll look up and it's Thursday and I have a meeting, but it feels like a Saturday because there's no.
Yeah, there's just no way. I find myself a lot of times in the same way. I'm like, I have not reached the point where you are at just quite yet, but we're doing a lot of really interesting stuff ourselves. So, how do you manage? Like, do you have a personal assistant? Do you have like a daily planner? Like, how does that work? What are the logistics of that? Does your team take care of that a lot?
It all helps. Luckily, I have a very loving, caring wife, and she helps and makes sure I'm not fucking up too much. And without her, none of this would be possible.
And you have kids as well, right? Okay, no kids. So you got just the wife, and she's a pivotal backbone of the operation. So, and you had said that you guys are a large ad company, but you've mentioned tech as well. What do you guys consider yourself? What do you classify yourself? What's like the end? Obviously you start with water, but what's your end goal? Is it to always do the water? Obviously you're going to do more, but
So Freewater will always be our most profitable product because it's the problem people have most often: thirst. Like, I love mango, that's my favorite fruit, but free mango will never do as much business as free water. Free beer will always do more than mangoes because even though it's alcoholic, it's mainly water.
right.
Same thing when weed is free, even though people are going to go crazy over free weed, it's not going to do the business that free water will. And so water will always be our most profitable and maybe our most meaningful product, but it'll ultimately be a free supermarket or free Amazon. And so we're talking free computers, we're talking that microphone you're speaking on, we can make free today. Any of these, your headphones, your shirt, your chains, even anything within a $40,000 a year salary, the world will start getting free access to these things in the next 2 to 3 years.
Why that number? Why 40,000?
So there's many ways to make products free, and there's different categories of free products. The free water category I call the BVRE, below the value of the real estate, which means the ad space on this water or box of Cheerios or whatever that pays for the product, its manufacturing, its distribution, our donation to charity, the salesperson's commission, and our profit. And while that seems like a lot, that works for water, soda, beer, weed, groceries, a lot of types of clothing, low-end pharmaceuticals, household cleaning supplies such as Windex, whatever, toiletries, but it actually works for every type of public transportation, from buses to you name it. Then you have the other category, which means they might not let you put ads on it, like an iPhone. They won't let you advertise on the iPhone, or like a product that you could advertise on it, but it wouldn't cover the cost. Like let's say $100 bottle of tequila. Even if you put ads on it, that could only cut the price down a handful of bucks. And so that one is the AVRE, above the value of the real estate. And so that one will be a YouTube competitor. And so YouTube and TikTok currently charge 40 cents a minute to advertise. When we launch that category of product, we will also charge 40 cents a minute to advertise, but we're going to pay our audience 36 or 37 of those cents in the Freewater token, which means you're going to get paid $21 an hour to watch ads, help companies with SEO, and train our future AI. And maybe someone like you, you're like, 21 bucks an hour, it's not worth my time. But in America, most people can't even make 15 bucks an hour. And so that freedom of making $20 an hour from your underwear on the couch, now you could make anything within that, because again, 20 bucks an hour, 40 hours a week, that's 40K a year. That's where I pull that number from. And so if they did 80 hours a week, it would be 80K a year. And so at full fruition, let's say you wanted an iPhone on apple.com and that iPhone is $1,000. You're like, well, at 20 bucks an hour, I know I need to participate this many hours. And you'll go through our website, you'll get it for free. And now we own that data. Apple, even though they'll feel threatened by us, will be happy because they get their asking price. The consumer's monetizing their time at 20 bucks an hour, and we're going to take 2% for that. And so that second category of product, the exchange for your time, that allows you to make just about anything free, such as your studio. Maybe you're selling your studio at X thousands of dollars per session. Maybe today someone out there really wants to do work in your studio, but they don't have that cash. But they're like, man, I'm gonna get in Stack Studio. I'm just gonna at 20 bucks an hour. I know, bam, now I got that money. And someone has access to your studio who couldn't afford it today. You don't care because you got your money, you got your asking price, right?
Right.
But we'll be giving more people access to more goods and services that they want, but they just can't have access to it today.
Interesting. So, I mean, and you're basically, I mean, like I said, you are solving so many problems potentially. Like you're giving people water, potentially providing them almost a universal basic income. Like, I mean, you might become like essentially like an employee. It's like a job just to watch ads.
It's so at full fruition, when we are the quote unquote free Amazon, and we're talking free computers, free Ubers, free just about everything. Imagine what that's going to save the average American family of four. Because the average American right now is spending $9K a year on their car. So if you had free Uber, that's $9K in your pocket right there. And the average American family is spending, a few grand on their groceries, whatever on their clothing, on their computers, on their phone bill, on their internet bill. When all of that is free, we're talking, maybe 30K a year for the average American family. And so I do think that will equate to a new level of freedom where, I have friends that became doctors or lawyers, not because they care, but they just wanted that check. They wanted that salary. They hate their life. They don't like being an accountant. If they had all of that stuff for free, maybe they would just, I don't know, make a talk. Something else, whatever interests them, right?
Right. Which is, and it sounds like you're a believer in AI as well. Like you don't think it's something malicious. And just from sort of a personal standpoint, how I kind of unpackage that, a lot of people are scared that, what you're doing is going to take away jobs and no one will be able to live. And the way I see it is it will free people up to go do what they love and be ultimately as creative as they want to be. Or if you want to just sit by a river and eat grapes and drink free water, go for that. Because that's what we were designed as humans to do.
I look at it a little bit differently. I look at AI and automation in that in 5 years, we'll all be out of the job. I don't care if you're a software developer, if you're a doctor or a lawyer, 10 years tops, we're all out of the job. And the US government is in a lot of debt. And I don't see us having a nationalized universal basic income in this country. Maybe a Sweden, maybe a France, maybe in Australia, but not in the USA. And so when none of us have jobs through autonomous technologies, hey, we need that. And for now, it will be this ad-supported UBI. But I do want to point out that I personally hate advertising data. And I've actually created ways of making all this free and profitable with zero ads and zero data. But the only way to deploy that is we would need $250 million plus first. And so what you see today, I would call this free groceries version 0.0001. We're not even at version 1.0. And for me, version 10.0 would be the free Amazon, but zero ads. And we still make money. And it's all possible through technology today. None of this stuff is not achievable today via, oh, we're waiting for this magic piece of technology to happen. No, it's all there today, and it's all up for grabs, and for any company just to come in and do it.
Amazing. Totally amazing. I mean, and brilliant. And so, like I said, I definitely want to have you back on the podcast if you have time. Obviously, you're going to probably be getting busier and busier by the day. But I think there's a lot in just what's going on with you and the journey that you're on, and also just where you've come from and all the knowledge that you have. And I'm super interested to know about it just from a human standpoint. I want to help as much as I can. As soon as I saw what you were doing, I got it. And I was like, this is amazing. This needs to go further. My company, we're doing a bunch of similar things, but different in a way. And it's funny because there's a kid I saw on TikTok. He's got he is like super viral with, like, have you heard of like the flood bowl?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
He made one for us because he said,
oh, perfect.
Freewater is like negative calories per dollar or whatever.
Yes. Yeah. It's like I was like just thinking he'd go nuts for what you have going, but it's like he's kind of on, and I don't know how much of what he has is like satire or like real, but I mean, he's kind of weirdly like stumbled onto something brilliant that people want their calories per dollar. And I forget like all the other metrics he has, but I mean, you are doing a lot of really, really amazing things. I want to, at some point, if you're down, have you back on, and I'll probably, hopefully the viewers and people who hear this will not only connect with you, but will reach out to the podcast. Let us know, what else do you want to know from Josh? And I've got a couple other questions for you before I let you go, but
yeah, I'm in. Come on, I'm having a good time, so I would love to again. Do you have any? What other questions do you have right now?
So have you heard of the Bank of Dave? That's supposed to be like a document. So there was some guy, and I haven't looked fully into it because obviously I'm fairly busy myself, but I believe he started his own bank, something to that extent, which I know you can start credit unions, things like that, but I'm not 100% on it. But it's something that where this is going, because I mean, you're talking about potentially replacing, and I was going to ask you, this is even something that you want to do, or you think Freewater will end up doing, like having these local fulfillment centers, and you're going to provide people's drinking water. At some point, they're like, hey, let me get my running water, like building, like you're going to essentially take over city utilities where you have water treatment plants and things like that.
Exactly.
So is that something that you think Freewater is going to go down that route as well? Like you were saying at 10 point?
I guess you would call it smart city infrastructure. A lot of people think of a smart city as connected with IoT or this or that. For me, a city's not smart if everything costs money. So the first thing would be a free city, free housing, free rent, free all these things. And then on top of that, all the green attributes, everything connected via the latest tech. And so I do see that's where things are heading. Right now, the powers to be want everything to be centralized. Centralized electricity, centralized water, centralized. But I do see the future being each house producing its own electricity, each house producing its own water, each house, basically being its own micro sewage system. And the powers to be, they don't want that, but they don't have a choice because centralized doesn't work well, because the further you send electricity down the power line, it loses energy.
Right.
And like the city of Austin, for example, a large percentage of our water never makes it to your tap because the pipes are so long, there's a water leak 10 times before it gets to your faucet. And so the centralized ways are are really becoming a thing of the past. And the powers to be, they don't like it, but I do think they're slowly embracing it because they do see that the efficiency of the current systems are just so lousy that the way of the future is that decentralized everything model. And I don't mean decentralized with like blockchain. Usually decentralized means fuck the man, we're not paying taxes, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying governments creating decentralized infrastructure for citizens. That's the future. It's greener, it's cheaper, it's more powerful, because again, the further you send electricity, the more you lose along that conversion. And so it doesn't make sense to send a watt of electricity very far in the future. It just makes sense to create it on your own roof, and then whatever you don't use, you share it back into the grid. And that grid is the government. And so you're never going to get rid of the government. You're never going to get rid of that formal infrastructure, which is what I think they were initially scared of. And so it's just a matter of time. But I do think things like this pandemic, or unfortunately, hurricanes, tsunamis, earthquakes, every time something major happens and they realize, okay, crap, we have a lot of problems now because of the current system, I think that accelerates that world, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and that's one of my passions. And obviously for those that don't know, I have a studio and own a studio, and we make music, and we're a podcast, and we do crypto, and we have a bunch of other things that we're getting into. My end goal is free energy. And I'm a big believer in liquid fluoride thorium reactors and nuclear energy, and the hope for that, and the sustainability of energy across the globe. And that's something that, to not make this episode about us by any means, but that's like, it's like I'm sort of like, I want to be the free power guy, and you're starting with the free water. And I see at some point, like, and you and I have talked, that free water might be able to bring about just free energy to the world in and of itself.
I started with autonomous transportation and energy. And so we've created processes that I know could make all those things free today. A few years back, my mom, she didn't really have a filter. And one day she just said, listen, you've got some pretty big ideas here, but you're no fucking Elon Musk. You've got some Elon Musk ideas, but you're not a billionaire. No one knows who you are. No one's going to give you a car company or an energy company. But maybe you could figure out a way to dumb down your free taxi, your free energy, your free big pharma models, and make something as simple as a bottle of water free or a bag of potatoes free. She's like, if you can't make a bag of potatoes free, you're not going to be able to make an electric car free. But once you prove yourself with that bag of potatoes, then they're going to be like, wait a minute, maybe they're onto something with the three other things. And so this really is just our first products. And all of these things, from energy to the internet to your car, they not just free, negatively priced. That's all possible today, and it will all happen very quickly in a blink of an eye. It's just it's all there. All the pieces are there. It's just it's very counterintuitive because it goes against social norms. That's the only reason why it's not happening today. But once people get past those social norms, then it'll be right there.
I agree. Do you think, like I said, there's a lot of power in that as well? Do you think, like I said, there's the guy who started the bank, and now he has Bank of Dave. It's like I don't know if it's one location he's to branch out or what, but some people might wonder at some point if it's going to be like the United States of Josh, right? Because of like the power of sort of that. What do you have to say to that? Do you worry about that? Is that, I mean, obviously you're not to that bridge, and how your mom had said, like, you're not Elon Musk, but at some point very well could be.
Our goal is to be the people's project. And so right now our products are barely negative price. It's 110% off, free plus 10 cents to charity. But as things unfold and the infrastructure is built that we're building, it could take 5 years, it could take 10 years. What you'll see is our biggest, I guess, moat or competitive advantage will be that we will always offer the best negative value. And so I'm waiting for somebody to say, oh, we're free plus 15 cents, because that night I'll go 20. And then somebody else says 25 cents, we'll go 30. When the dust settles 5+ years from now, you'll see your groceries not just be free. I see it at 150% off. And why I could confidently say that is, that's what we're going to do. And so if other people don't copy, then yes, we would be without very much competition, if that makes sense. But ultimately, our goal is to give as much money back to the consumer. It's not just to give you free groceries. The goal is to pay you the most money to eat those free groceries. And so that's this answer that we have for a universal basic income is you'll never be rich, but when all of your stuff is free and pays you to consume it, and you own 50% of the value of the data that you produce, and you own 50% of a lot of that. I mean, that's really the best that we could do is to pay you as much as possible to get these free things. I do think that mechanism of having the best negatively, our life goal of always having the best negative value, that kind of prevents us from being that asshole company, because I'll take it to free plus 90% to charity and in your pocket if possible, because it's not a money thing. It's about saving the lives, and it's about helping the environment. And I think that's more important than money. If that why wasn't the driving factor, I would have never have gotten the project this far. And so people are always like, oh, well, now that you've got it this far, what's preventing you from just, being that asshole? And I'm not really motivated by the cash.
Yeah.
I really liked, how old are you?
I turned 33 on Valentine's Day.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
There was a boxer in the 90s, Trinidad, and he had a lot of big fights against De La Hoya and Vargas. And I'm pretty sure it was him. He famously gave away like most of his big checks. They would give him that 5 or 10 or $20 million payday, and he just gave it all away. Wow. And they would ask, like, why are you giving away all of that money? And it's to stay hungry, pretty much. And my goal is to give. And so when we do have those sizable amounts of money in our bank account, I don't see myself stashing it, or I see myself giving it. And so that's the goal. That's my driving factor. I think the most selfish thing somebody could do is help a complete stranger, not help yourself. I think you're going to get pretty bored just helping yourself. I mean, once you have a certain amount of money and you could already eat whatever you want and do whatever you want, I think any money beyond that, it doesn't really move the needle for you per se. But I do think you could move the needle by helping people on a larger and larger scale, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I agree in a lot of ways. I think it's cool. Ferraris are cool. Diamonds and gold are cool. Obviously, like I wear them and whatever. But it's a cooler asterisk on the headstone where it's like he gave the most out of anyone in history, and like, or he saved the most, or he helped the most, as opposed to he had the biggest wallet. It's like, that's cool, and I get it, whatever. And it's like, you might accomplish both, and why not? Who cares at that point? But it's I think human beings ultimately at our core are communal creatures. And if you figure out a way that you can look after, the whole world, that's amazing. And if you can do it for a few generations until who knows what happens, because life inevitably will change or whatever, or maybe this becomes the new norm and it changes society altogether, then great. I mean, it's in my personal opinion, life is not perfect and it might never necessarily be so, but yeah, it's very admirable.
The goal of this project is to prove to the world that it's more profitable to do the right thing than the wrong thing. Today, companies will cut down every tree in the rainforest, and if McDonald's, they're going to grow beef or whatever, and if McDonald's stock goes up 1/4 of a point, it's okay. People will look the other way. But what we'll prove is you can make far more money helping people and improving the environment than the status quo today. And so recently, my wife and I, we were in New York City. We were in front of the stock exchange. And as I was explaining to her, none of those companies represent negatively priced products. they're all for sale. I sell whatever service or product, it's all for sale. In order to make a product negative price, the only way to go negative is it has to be free. And then on top of that, you either have to pay the consumer to use it or you have to donate money to charity. But either way, they'll look at it as, okay, this is negatively priced because they either put the money right in my pocket or they're helping some sort of cause that I care about. And so I predict that we will be the first negatively priced CPG on the stock market. But then within years later, I believe you'll see the majority of companies on the stock market representing negatively priced products and services. And so what will be the profound change to society when companies are competing to see who could pay their consumer more or to donate more to charity? As opposed to today, companies are competing to see who could screw over the environment, the local community, or the consumer the most. And so that's the change we're looking for, to be that catalyst in this negative price zone, which again, the only way to go negative is to be beneficial to the world.
That's amazing. What I'm going to do, I'm going to cut us short just because I don't want to go over our time and I don't want to lose anything. And I would love to have you on the podcast again if you're down. Yeah, awesome. Super informative. I hope if anybody has any questions, comments, I'm going to be posting this on YouTube and across all our social medias. It might take a few days. I'm not 100% sure when that'll be up because it's still got to go through the editing process as well because we're perfectionists with our audio. But real quick, how do people help you guys reach out to you? What do you need? What, like, if Elon Musk sees this, what should he do? Or just, my grandma up the street, what do we do?
The world doesn't really know that this is possible or exists yet. So please help us spread the word. Please reach out through us at our website at freewater.io if you just have any questions, advertising, investment, anything, or just follow the journey on TikTok. That's where all the magic happens.
Okay, cool. And then, once again, I'd love to have you on the podcast again, more than likely, if you're with it. Sweet. Then we will most than likely, everyone who's listening, you will get a part 2. I'm not sure 100% when that will be because our schedules are crazy, but I don't know if you had any questions, Josh, anything you wanted to say beyond that. I've just kind of been shooting questions at you this whole time.
I'm looking forward to the next podcast.
Perfect.
Let's knock it out in like 6 months or
something. Okay, perfect. Well, Josh, I appreciate your time. I'm going to let you go. Everyone, that's been the Millionaire Millennial. Please tune in. Let us know what more you want to see, who you want to see. If you have questions for us, get a hold of us and we will do our best to pepper Josh with more questions.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.